Hi, friends. Hello, the world. Welcome back to this podcast of Tools for Transitioning Humanitarians. And here is another tool that I want to introduce to you that you know very well. But I really want to focus on how are we using it and how we don't need to use it, and what are the ways that we can use it to maximum to our advantage, and what are the ways that you should watch out how you might be using it against yourself. And the tool is the goals. Or if you don't like the terminology of goals, you can replace it with whichever terminology that means to make your desires come reality, right? So it could be whatever you want, whatever you desire, whatever your heart and soul craves for, whatever the name for that thing that you're desiring, the life that you're wanting to live, that's what we're going to talk about. Because I have been observing more and more as to how some of my clients tell me that they are either afraid of setting goals because they feel like they will fail it anyway, or they set a goal and then they don't follow through, and then they start taking up the identity of I'm not the person who follows through, or I have commitment issues or avoidance issues. Or I have clients who say that like pursuing goal is actually not good, it's not helpful, it's not useful, and therefore I don't even do that. And we'll be talking about all of those things, excuse me, as to how you can coach yourself or come coach with me so that we can get all of those obstacles or objections our out of our sphere so that we can pursue what we want to. Because in the pursuit of our goals, there will still be obstacles enough to encounter without having to additionally battle with ourselves as to how we shouldn't or should pursue this goal. Right. So that's why here are the ways that I will be introducing how I use my goals. And also, I suggest how you can consider using your goals. So for the lack of a better word for now, I will be using one terminology that is goals, but of course you can, like, if you don't like the name, you can replace it with whichever the name you want to. So the way that I use goals is first and foremost to create or improve identity that I like and remove the identities that I don't want to. So give you an example. I used to have the identity of a person who um, is always like self-pitying, always complaining, always saying how my life is not the way I want to. And that used to be my identity at some point. And then I have decided that that's not really what I want to do it, or that it's not really who I want to be anymore. And therefore, I have decided to use different goals to show to myself how I'm the person who's actually in charge of what I want to do, how I want to live my life, where I want to live. I will decide on all of those things. And that's why I have used goals to create the identity I like living and being, right? So, for instance, currently, I would say the identity that I have is I'm the person who intentionally designs and decides how to live, where to live, with whom to live, and have all the freedom to be doing what I want, to be making the impact I want, while having the emotional, financial, all the other freedoms I have. This is the identity that I have intentionally created with the help of some of the goals. Right. So the way that I have done it is that, for instance, I have achieved certain things that I wanted to achieve in the time frame that I wanted to achieve, and then I just improved or um, supported my identity or gathered evidence for how that person is me. Another way that I use goals is to develop skills. And that's one of the amazing ways that tools that we have is we can just create whatever the goals we want or listen to the desires we want. And then by achieving those desires, by making those realities, we then also develop our skills. Some of the skills that I have developed over the years is dedication, passion, I always want to be working on things that I'm very passionate about, that I am in integrity with, that I actually do the things that I say I would do. I honor my desires, right? I trust myself. I trust my desires as well. I'm committed to my desires and making them as valuable as the desires of my clients. So that's why the skills that I have developed over the years and continue to do that even now, some of the skills that I continue working on is commitment. Right? Commitment to helping my clients get extraordinary results in their lives that they never thought was possible, for instance. And these are the skills I love developing through these goals. Whatever the goal I set for myself, then I start developing those skills. For instance, I'm so good at learning languages or passing the test, and therefore I have shown to myself how I can do that in 7 different languages through learning those skills. Another one is that freedom and predictability that I developed through these goals, meaning that if I achieve more of the goals that I set for myself, the more freedom I feel, like I can do whatever I want in life. Right? This is the freedom that I cannot trade for anything else in life. And therefore, I really love this idea of having the goals and achieving those goals. And through those goals, having this pride moments of I feel this freedom to create whatever I want in life, and also making my goal achievement more predictable, meaning that I tell myself these are the things I need to be doing, these are the things I want to be believing, and therefore this is how I achieve what I want to achieve. Even if maybe sometimes not in the time frame that I want to, but it doesn't matter. What matters is how I'm using those goals as a tool to make my journey predictable. So, for instance, one of the things that I have really done last year is that I told myself that I really want to start learning Italian, and I also want to bring it to the highest level that I can think of, so that I tell myself this is when I stop learning, right? When I have my certificate of advanced level C1, then I stop learning the language. I passed the certain parts of oral comprehension and audio and speaking, but I didn't pass the written part. Now, I predicted more or less that I would pass all of them, but I wasn't really sure about this written part. And the reason why I wasn't sure was because I didn't really put the effort to learning it, which I'm doing it now. Therefore, I could make it predictable, the journey of how I would achieve it. And now this year, I want to make it predictable for myself that if I put this amount of work, then I feel good about my skills and therefore I will pass the exam. Do you see what I'm saying? So I really use the goals as a way to make it predictable for myself, to make it guaranteeable for myself so that I get so good at doing it, then I start saying, okay, if I now want to achieve some other goal, whether it's a money related goal, whether it's a health related goal, then I know that I can also make that predictable. The other one that I really love using goals for is troubleshooting, right? In other words, I really start understanding what are the reasons why I didn't get the goal that I want to, right? So using the same example of the language, I did not learn or I did not get my certificate of advanced level last year as I expected or as I set myself as a goal is because of the thought that it should be fine, or the thought that I kept using, which was, I will just do it and let's see. Right? That was the thought of someone who was not really sure, but I just wanted to risk it. And I did, and it was fine. I got like some parts done, but other parts not. So you can see now that I know that that was the thought that was actually making me not really put the effort to the written part of the language lesson, right? Or the exam. Now I know this year that I want to be meticulous in learning the written part as much as the other parts because bringing my language skills to a particular high level and then stop learning, that matters to me. It matters to me how I communicate with people. It matters to me how I do that in not only verbal but also in written way. And plus, the way that I learn more of the written part will help me so much to improve my oral communication as well, right? So that's why I could troubleshoot for myself and then feeling like I'm in charge of how I can solve it instead of believing that someone else has the answer, instead of believing that I would go and search in the internet for hours for the answer. Now, don't understand me wrong that I'm not suggesting that don't learn from other people. I'm just suggesting that use goals as a way for you to develop your trust in yourself to be able to solve any problem that you encounter without necessarily learning from someone else. Or even if you do learn from someone else, but still be able to tell yourself that you know why you didn't achieve the thing that you wanted to, and here is how you will change it. And this gives me continuous curiosity to be learning from my own mistakes, to be learning from my own failures, so that failures don't become such huge problem in the end, because they just become something like, yes, there will be feelings that I need to be feeling when it comes to failing, right? It's not nice to fail, and you have this feeling of, I should have done better, I should have done different, whatever the feelings that come up, or disappointment. I need to be feeling all of this while being curious as to what are the reasons why I didn't achieve what I wanted to achieve. The other way that I love goals for is goals also help me to start looking at my fears closely, right? So as soon as I put myself a goal and then a deadline, all of my fears start coming up. And that's a great way to learn about my fears as to where exactly my fears lie and what do I want to do with them. This makes me feel so intimate with fears as well, and also understand that certain things I can continue doing without doing anything about fears, meaning without removing the fears, right? So, especially when it comes to transitioning for my humanitarians, this becomes such a obstacle for many of us to transition because we're so afraid of not making it happen, failing, everyone making fun of us or humiliating, or us going back to our previous employer after being defeated, right? These are the fears that come up when we want to transition. Now, as soon as we start understanding that if the goal is to transition and live the life in the way we want to, or the make the impact the way we want to, or earn the money we want to, whatever the goal is on the other side of transitioning, then being intimate with fears becomes so important. Therefore, you may use different other goals to get to know your fears before you transition if you want to. Or you can also get courageous and transition while learning so much about your fears, irrespective of it. The goals are perfect tools for us to learn so much about our emotions, especially about our fears. And another great way is that goals help us generate new feelings if we want to, right? New identities if we want to be able to go through that process. The other one that I love about goals is that it always helps me understand how I'm being attached to certain things and how I don't need to be attached, or how I need to actually remove those attachments. And this is where I see many of my humanitarian clients tell me that they really want to date that guy or that girl or that amazing humanitarian. They want to do that now that they have their work life in place, but they believe that if they pursue this relationship, or if they pursue this goal, or if they decide to have this goal of being in a relationship by the end of the year, for instance, then all the fears coming up, all the attachments come up of this is not going to work, right? Because we know that whenever we are so attached to something, we are likely not to have the result we want to, or even if we do get the result, we're not going to like it. So that's why it becomes so crucial to understand for ourselves how we can remove those attachments, how we can still pursue what we want to without the attachment. Is it possible? If it is, how can we do that? These are the questions that we will be curious about as we pursue our goals. Now, the last two are, I think, something that many of us really strive as well, which is how to create our impact, right? What are the impacts we want to create in the world? So, for instance, my goal is really to create the impact in the humanitarian world so that the people who work there, people who want to work there, right, they do this intentionally because they really believe in the cause of what they're doing. And if they stop believing it, or if they don't want to do that in that environment, they also have the freedom to choose and to leave that environment without thinking that it will be a failure or it will not work or whatever it is, without too much drama, so that they continue making impact somewhere else, if not in the humanitarian world. And therefore, all of my education, all of my goals, all of my mission basically is going towards helping and equipping my amazing humanitarians to have as much awareness about, excuse me, what's happening, as much awareness as to who they are, how they function, how they want to function, what they want to do, how they want to create their impact, so that they are intentional with their lives, just like I am intentional with my life, so that I have a focus to always focus on. Right? So these are the ways I suggest for you to use the tool that we all human beings have, which is goal setting, or listening to our desires, creating what we truly want. Now, I also want to talk to you briefly about what are the things not to do with goals, or how not to use goals for or against, right? So I see a lot of people using goals in the way that's very counterproductive. And here are the ways that I see people are using it, and I see that that's not helpful, and you will see why on your own. You probably have seen it. And one of the reasons why you probably have resistance towards setting a goal or pursuing a goal might be because of these reasons. So, one of the things that I often see is that people use goals to punish themselves, to blame themselves, and to blame someone else, or to feel bad about themselves, basically, right? But that's not the purpose of setting a goal. That's not the purpose of pursuing a goal. Now, if you want to get good at punishing yourself or blaming, by all means, go ahead and do that. But I just don't see the use of that activity at all. So that's why don't try even do that. Or if you are doing currently, stop doing it. Or if you stop setting goals because you are afraid of punishing yourself for not having achieved what you want, now it's time to reconsider how can you pursue a goal, learn from it, use it in the way that I suggested before, and not punish yourself. That's a great exercise for you to do. Another similar activity that we do is we corner ourselves. I tend to do that sometimes with myself, even now, where I have so much awareness, but I still do that, where I start saying, like, it's either I'm achieving this goal or I'm not this person, or whatever it is, right? We start putting conditions or ultimatums to ourselves, which is not useful because they just make us be in this cornered, trapped place that we can't really get out of it, or it takes a long time to get out of it. So that's why cornering ourselves, conditioning ourselves, putting ultimatums to ourselves is not useful at all. And that's not the purpose of setting a goal, because goals are arbitrary, right? Meaning that we individually decide what they should be and how they should be. And B, we also have the ability to maneuver how to achieve, when to achieve it. But if you keep ultimating ourselves or cornering ourselves, then we will not want to pursue any goal anymore. And therefore, we just want to continue living our hiding or lives that are not really truly ours because we're not all about pursuing what we really want to. So that's why this is another thing that you can watch out for. The other one is what oftentimes happens is then we start distrusting ourselves as soon as we don't achieve the goals we want to, as soon as we give up, as soon as we just tell ourselves we're not someone who just follows through goals, as soon as we tell ourselves we're the people who are not good at committing, then they become like our identities, and therefore we are refusing to trust ourselves and we start growing distrust. And that is not helpful either. Therefore, as soon as you start a goal, as soon as you set a goal, you continue working on it, even if you didn't achieve in the time frame that you wanted, even if you didn't achieve the way that you wanted so far, you continue working on it to build the trust that you are someone who is able to get back from those setbacks instead of you are the one who gives up in those difficult moments. Because whatever the goal we set, there will guaranteed be difficult moments. Now, the oftentimes what our brains do is our brains want to give up in those moments. Our brains say, well, it's too hard, it's too complicated, why would we do that? It's too costly. Whatever the arguments that our brains start telling ourselves, and therefore we give up on our goals. And the soon as we give up on our goals, we just um reinforce this distrust in ourselves. Now we're someone who just gives up and not follows through. The other one is staying trapped. Therefore, we tell ourselves we're just someone who's not sure. We're just someone who does not really finish things until the end. We're someone who just gets excited and then don't finish. We're someone, and then we start just telling ourselves the story of who we are now, and then we make ourselves trapped in our own story. And then what we often do is we often then get so hustly in getting out of that story, or we start struggling to get out of that story, or we just believe that if we like work 24/7, or if we just keep working on our goals, then one day we'll just achieve. And then once we achieve, we're so exhausted that we can't even enjoy the success of our stories. Or we have given ourselves now the message that achieving goals is very hustly, very struggly, and therefore it's too hard to achieve the next big thing because our brain says we don't have energy for all of this again. We don't want to do the same thing again. Therefore, we don't like the goals again. And this is how the resistance starts, right? The resistance starts when we think that our goals are the reasons why we're suffering, and therefore we don't want to set goals anymore. No wonder, right? Or we just believe that because we're not good at setting goals or achieving them, we just accrue lots of different evidence for how that's true, and therefore we just resist doing any other goal setting for ourselves, and therefore we're afraid to even transition to something else because we just believe that we're not good at committing to something, we're not good at something else, we're not good at da da da, and then we just stop ourselves from transitioning. Or even if we decide to go for it, but then we keep second guessing ourselves, we keep doubting ourselves, we keep doubting our goals, doubting whether it's possible at all, doubting our abilities, doubting ourselves in total, and therefore we just paralyze with all the analysis of learning from other people, maybe consuming lots of information, or planning a lot, or thinking a lot, overthinking, to a point that we just don't do anything, and we just keep indulging in our own story of how everything is so complicated, how we can't really live the life we want to, how we can't really do the things we want to, well, life is unfair, and all the things. So I think I have like depicted to you all the ways of how we could use goals against ourselves or our desires against ourselves, and therefore never pursue them, and therefore keep having these type of objections that I keep hearing, which is like it should just happen on their own, right? So as I said, that some of my humanitarian clients, they want to have not only work in place and fulfilling and satisfying, and also having the impact, but they also want to have their personal lives in place, the personal lives of having family, having relationships they want, um, or having hobbies, right? And then as soon as we start talking about this particular topic, especially meeting the person they want to, or dating the person they want to, then this argument starts happening, which is it should just happen on its own. Now, if that is you, I really want you to think about why do you think that's the case? Because everything else, if you think about it, we have put some effort to getting the job, getting our studies finished, our university completed. We have put efforts to pursuing those goals, right? Um, or we don't expect money to fall into our bank account on their own. We also know that we need to do some effort to making that happen, creating something. Providing some type of value to someone so they can pay us. We know that we do those things in order to get the results we want or the goals that we want. But when it comes to certain goals, I see that there is this resistance. So you want to be just curious about what that resistance is about, right? Maybe some of the reasons why you think that's the case is because it has been in the past. That's amazing. And maybe it will be again in the future, but just because it has happened in the past in a particular way, um, does not mean that it may happen that way. We don't know. We will never know until it happens. But what I'm really suggesting for you to think about is how you can get yourself out of that resistance into the curiosity, openness, readiness mode. So you start connecting with different humans, maybe not necessarily for the purposes of dating, maybe for the purposes of getting to know other people, but most importantly, getting to know yourself through that process, right? So therefore, setting a goal for meeting the person you really want to can be a great exercise for you to start feeling certain uncomfortable feelings, maybe that you don't really want to feel, so that you can get out of your comfort zone to start meeting people, right? Or even if you're meeting someone in the way that you really want to, instead of feeling in this graspy or needy energy and therefore feeling disappointed if things don't go the way you want to. So all of these connections and meetings might be a great exercise for you to get to know yourself and how you react, how you see things, how you present yourself, how you define for yourself what kind of relationship you want, what kind of person you want. All of this can be amazing data or amazing um, information for you to decide how you want to come closer to your goal, how you want to achieve what you want to. So that's why I really want you to think about these questions. So what's the difference between when you are pursuing other goals versus the goal of meeting someone? Or the goal of maybe the other goal that you're pursuing is having a certain amount of money, right? Or the other goal maybe is creating the impact you want to after transitioning, or even without ever transitioning to outside of humanitarian world. So just curious, get curious as to what is it that you have created until now. Have you achieved all of what you have created so far without any effort, or you did still do some parts of it until you started creating opportunities for yourself? Because the other argument that I get is that, well, until now I have been getting different opportunities. I haven't really done anything. But that's not really true if you think about it, right? Because you have developed certain skills so that those opportunities could match your skills. and you are the one who have created it. Maybe you haven't really intentionally for that purposes you have developed those skills, but still you have certain experience, certain skills that could match those opportunities, and that's a beautiful thing. So use those goal settings in the way that's most useful to you, in the way that most um, bringing your bringing you to the places that you really want to come to, creating the life you want to, and getting yourself out of this punishing or resisting mode, or of the second guessing or doubting mode, because all of those things can just take away the curiosity, take away the trust, take away the readiness and willingness to with like with all heart and soul go into uh, achieving what we want to, or into creating what we want to, and living the life we want to, right? So that's why my goal of this episode is really to help you understand how else you could use goals in the way that's useful for you, and how to get away from those areas where you might be using goals against yourself. So, my dears, if you want to get coaching on this particular topic or any other topic around transitioning, around humanitarian life, so come over, coach with me. I would love to get you to the place where you are in charge of how you start creating the goals, honoring those desires, how you come closer to your desires, how you make them reality, and how you live them, so that you reinforce your identity of being the person who always gets to achieve what you want to, putting your genuine heart and soul to it and working towards it. Have an amazing week. Speak to you very soon.